The sleek, angular Zyronian diplomatic vessel glides effortlessly through the void of space, its elegant design a stark contrast to the bulky, utilitarian human frigate it has encountered. The Zyronians aboard scoff at the primitive appearance of the human craft, convinced of their own technological superiority. "Look at that abomination," sneers the Zyronian captain. "How do these humans even manage to pilot such a clumsy vessel?" First Officer Tiberin nods in agreement, his eyes narrowed as he studies the human ship through the view screen. "It's an embarrassment to interstellar engineering. I'm surprised it hasn't simply drifted apart at the seams." He turns to the captain, a hint of disdain in his voice. "Shall we hail them, or do you think it would be a waste of our time?" The captain considers the question for a moment, drumming his fingers on the armrest of his chair. "Oh, I think we should at least make an attempt to communicate with these humans," he says, the word dripping with contempt. "Perhaps we can offer them some insight into proper starship design. It's the least we can do, given their limitations." With a nod, Tiberin opens a channel, and the human vessel's image appears on the view screen. A stern-faced woman in a crisp uniform stares back at them, her expression betraying no hint of the Zyronians' condescension. "This is Commander Jane Ryder of the human vessel Endeavor," she says, her voice clear and unwavering. "We are on a routine survey mission in this sector. State your business and intentions." The captain leans back in his chair, a smug grin spreading across his face. "Ah, Commander Ryder, how delightful to make your acquaintance." He pauses, his gaze sweeping over the human ship as if inspecting a particularly curious specimen. "I am Captain Viller of the Zyronian diplomatic vessel Luminous. We are simply passing through this area, but we couldn't help but notice your unique mode of transportation." Tiberin stifles a chuckle, earning a sidelong glance from the captain. "Indeed," the first officer chimes in, his tone dripping with condescension. "Your vessel is quite intriguing. I must say, I've never seen anything quite like it. Tell me, how does it manage to stay in one piece?" Commander Ryder's expression remains impassive, but her eyes narrow slightly. "The Endeavor is a highly capable vessel, designed and engineered by the finest minds in human space exploration. She may not be as aesthetically pleasing as your ship, but she more than makes up for it in terms of performance and reliability." The captain waves a dismissive hand. Yes, I'm sure she has her strengths. But surely you must realize how utterly outclassed you are in the realm of interstellar travel. Your ship is positively archaic compared to the technological marvels we Zyronians have produced." Tiberin nods in agreement, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Indeed. Why, I'd be surprised if your vessel could even keep up with ours in a simple race through the stars. You humans have barely mastered space travel, and yet you dare to venture into Zyronian territory." The captain chuckles, the sound low and condescending. "Perhaps we should offer you a demonstration of our superior technology. A friendly competition, if you will. I'm sure it would be quite enlightening for you and your crew." Commander Ryder's jaw tightens, but her voice remains calm and measured. "I appreciate the offer, Captain Viller, but I can assure you that the Endeavor is more than capable of holding her own. We have no desire to engage in some petty display of technological prowess. Our mission is one of peaceful exploration, not competition." The captain's smile widens, and he leans forward, his eyes glinting with amusement. "Oh, but I insist, Commander. After all, it would be a shame for you to return to your people empty-handed, with no tales of your encounter with the mighty Zyronians. Consider it a cultural exchange, if you will." Commander Ryder's grip tightens on the arms of her chair, but before she can respond, the captain raises a hand, silencing her. "Very well, then. We shall give you a moment to consider our proposal, but I warn you, Commander, underestimating the Zyronians is a mistake you may come to regret." With that, the view screen blinks out, leaving Commander Ryder and her crew to ponder the implications of the Zyronians' challenge. The bridge of the Endeavor is silent for a moment as Commander Ryder and her crew digest The Zeronians' condescending challenge. Tension hangs thick in the air, punctuated only by the hum of the ship's systems. Finally, Ryder breaks the silence, her voice calm but firm. "Lieutenant Miyamoto, what's the status of the Zyronian vessel?" A young officer with sharp features and piercing eyes studies his console. "They're holding position, Commander. Sensors indicate their engines are at minimal output, as if they're waiting for us to make the first move." Ryder nods, her brow furrowed in thought. "And their weapon systems? Powered up, but not actively tracking us," Miyamoto replies. "They seem to be in a defensive posture, almost as if they're expecting us to retaliate." Ryder's lips thin into a tight line. "Of course they are. They're trying to bait us into some kind of confrontation." She turns to her communications officer, a seasoned veteran with a weathered face. "Hail them, Lieutenant Voss. Let's see if we can't defuse this situation before it escalates." Voss nods and taps a series of commands into his console. The view screen flickers to life, revealing the smug faces of Captain Villar and First Officer Tybran. "Captain Villar, I must insist that we resolve this matter peacefully," Ryder says, her tone measured but firm. "There's no need for us to engage in some friendly competition, as you put it. We are on a mission of exploration, not provocation." Villar's eyes narrow, and a condescending smile spreads across his face. "My dear Commander, you misunderstand. We are merely offering you the opportunity to demonstrate the capabilities of your vessel. Surely, you wouldn't want to pass up such a chance to showcase your people's technological prowess." Tybran chuckles, the sound grating on Ryder's nerves. "Yes, Commander. After all, how else will you convince us of your worth as explorers if you refuse to put your ship to the test?" Ryder's jaw tightens, but she refuses to rise to the bait. "I appreciate the offer, Captain, but as I've already stated, our mission is one of peaceful exploration. We have no desire to engage in some sort of performance for your amusement." Villar's expression darkens, a hint of annoyance creeping into his voice. "Performance? My dear Commander, this is no mere performance. This is a chance for you and your people to prove yourselves worthy of traversing Zyronian space." He leans forward, his eyes narrowing. "Or are you perhaps afraid?" Ryder's fingers dig into the arms of her chair, but she refuses to let her composure slip. "I can assure you, Captain, that the Endeavor and her crew are more than capable of handling whatever challenges you might present. However, I will not jeopardize our mission or the lives of my crew simply to satisfy your desire for a spectacle." Tybran scoffs, his features twisted in a sneer. "How disappointing. I had hoped you humans would at least have the courage to defend your claim to this sector. But it seems you are nothing more than cowards, content to hide behind your pathetic excuse for a starship." Ryder's eyes narrow, and her voice takes on a razor-sharp edge. "I would caution you against underestimating us. First Officer, the Endeavor may not be the most aesthetically pleasing vessel, but she has proven herself time and time again in the face of adversity. We have no need to prove our worth to you or any other alien race." Villar's expression darkens, and he leans forward, his fingers drumming impatiently on the armrest of his chair. "Very well, Commander. If you refuse to demonstrate the capabilities of your ship, then we have no further business here." He pauses, his gaze boring into Ryder's. "But mark my words, the next time we encounter your people, you may not be so fortunate." With that, the view screen blinks out, leaving the bridge of the Endeavor in tense silence. Ryder turns to her helmsman, her eyes steely. "Lieutenant Forrester, as soon as the Zeronians disengage, plot a course that will take us as far away from their territory as possible. I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of them." Forrester nods, his fingers flying across the console. "Aye, Commander. Course plotted and ready to engage as soon as the Zeronians clear our position." Ryder settles back into her chair, her mind racing. The Zeronians' contempt for human technology is clear, and their veiled threats only serve to heighten the tension. But she knows that they cannot afford to engage in a confrontation, not with their current mission parameters. As the Zironian vessel slowly maneuvers away, Ryder can't help but wonder what the future may hold. One thing is certain. The Endeavor and her crew will need to be prepared for whatever challenges lie ahead. As the Zironian vessel slowly maneuvers away, Commander Ryder can't help but feel a growing sense of unease. The condescending attitude of Captain Villar and First Officer Tybran has left a bitter taste in her mouth, and she knows that the Zironians' veiled threats cannot be taken lightly. Lieutenant Forrester, maintain course and keep a close eye on the Zironian vessel, Ryder orders, her gaze fixed on the retreating ship. I want to know the moment they make any suspicious moves. Aye, Commander, Forrester responds, his fingers dancing across the console as he monitors the Zironians' progress. Current trajectory indicates they're heading back to their own territory, but I'll keep a close watch just in case. Ryder nods, her brow furrowed in thought. Good. And Lieutenant Voss, open a secure channel to Starfleet Command. I need to report this encounter and get their assessment of the situation. Voss nods, his fingers flying across the communications panel. Channel open, Commander. Awaiting your report. Ryder takes a deep breath, her mind racing as she tries to compose her thoughts. This is Commander Jane Ryder of the Endeavor, reporting an encounter with a Zironian diplomatic vessel in Sector 47 Beta. The Zironians approached us in a rather confrontational manner, challenging the capabilities of our ship and offering to engage in some sort of friendly competition. She pauses, her lips thinning into a tight line. I refuse their offer, stating that our mission is one of peaceful exploration and that we have no desire to provoke a confrontation. However, the Zironians seemed intent on demonstrating their perceived technological superiority, and they made several veiled threats before departing our space. Ryder's eyes narrow as she continues. I'm concerned that this encounter may be the first of many, and I worry that the Zironians' disdain for human technology could lead to further escalation. I request guidance from Starfleet Command on how to proceed, as well as any additional intelligence they may have on the Zironian political and military posture in this sector. There's a brief pause before the response comes, the voice of the Starfleet officer tinged with concern. Acknowledged, Commander Ryder. We've received your report and are reviewing the situation. Based on the information you've provided, it seems the Zironians are eager to assert their dominance in this region, and they may view the Endeavor's presence as a challenge to their authority. The officer pauses, and Ryder can almost feel the weight of the decision being made. For now, we advise you to maintain your course and avoid any further confrontation with the Zironians. However, we will be dispatching additional ships to your sector as a precautionary measure, and we'll be sure to provide you with any relevant intelligence as it becomes available. Ryder nods, her shoulders tensing slightly. Understood. Starfleet Command. The Endeavor will continue its mission as planned, but will be on high alert for any further Zironian activity in the area. Acknowledged, Commander. Starfleet Command out. As the channel closes, Ryder turns to her crew, her expression grim. You heard the orders, people. Maintain our current course, but keep a close eye on the Zironians. I have a feeling they're not done with us yet. The crew springs into action, their faces etched with a mixture of determination and unease. Ryder settles back into her chair, her mind racing. She knows that the Zironians' disdain for human technology is not something to be taken lightly, and she can't shake the feeling that this encounter is just the beginning of a much larger conflict. As the Endeavor glides through the void of space, Ryder's gaze is drawn to the view screen, where the Zironian vessel is slowly disappearing from sight. She can't help but wonder what the Zironians are planning, and whether the human race is truly prepared to face the challenges that lie ahead. But even as the doubts creep in, Ryder steels her resolve. The Endeavor and her crew have faced adversity before, and they will do so again. They may not be the most technologically advanced vessel in the stars, but they are skilled, resourceful, and above all, determined. And if the Zironians think they can intimidate the humans with their sleek ships and arrogant posturing, They have another thing coming. As the Zyronian vessel disappears from view, an uneasy silence settles over the bridge of the Endeavor. The crew, once bustling with activity, seems to hold its collective breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Commander Ryder can feel the tension in the air, her own nerves thrumming with the anticipation of what's to come. She knows that the Zyronians' condescending remarks and veiled threats were not idle words, and she can't shake the feeling that they are planning something. Lieutenant Forrester, maintain our current course, but be prepared to take evasive action at a moment's notice. Ryder orders, her voice calm and steady despite the roiling storm of emotions within. "Aye, Commander," Forrester responds, his fingers poised over the thruster controls. Engines at the ready, navigational systems standing by. Ryder nods, her gaze sweeping across the bridge as she addresses the rest of her crew. "All hands, battle stations. I want every system at maximum readiness, and I want our weapons arrays fully charged and primed." The crew springs into action, their movements precise and efficient. Ryder watches as the bridge is transformed into a hive of activity, the familiar hum of the Endeavor's systems punctuated by the occasional beep of a console. As the minutes tick by, the tension on the bridge only seems to increase. Ryder can feel the anxiety radiating from her crew, their eyes darting nervously between their stations and the view screen. "Commander, the Zyronian vessel is powering up its engines," Forrester suddenly announces, his voice tinged with a hint of unease. "They're turning back towards us." Ryder's eyes narrow, her grip tightening on the armrests of her chair. Battle stations, all hands. Weapons systems, lock on to the Zyronian vessel and stand by to fire on my command. The bridge erupts into a flurry of activity as the crew springs into action, their faces set with grim determination. Ryder can feel her heart pounding in her chest, the adrenaline coursing through her veins as she braces for the impending confrontation. As the Zyronian vessel draws closer, its sleek, angular design a stark contrast to the Endeavor's more utilitarian appearance, Ryder can see the arrogance and contempt etched onto the faces of Captain Villar and First Officer Tybran. "So, you finally decided to show us what your mighty vessel can do, Commander." Vilar's voice crackles over the comm, his words dripping with sarcasm. "I must say, I'm positively trembling with anticipation." Ryder's jaw tightens, but she refuses to rise to the bait. "Captain Villar, I must insist that you stand down and return to your own territory. We have no desire to engage in a confrontation with your vessel." Tybran's laughter echoes through the bridge, the sound grating on Ryder's nerves. "Oh, but Commander, where's the fun in that? We've come all this way to see your ship in action, and we simply must know if it's as capable as you claim." Before Ryder can respond, the Zyronian vessel erupts in a dazzling display of firepower, its energy weapons lancing out towards the Endeavor. The bridge rocks with the impact, and Ryder grips the armrests of her chair to steady herself. Shields holding at 80%. Miyamoto reports, his fingers flying across his console. But the Zyronians are powering up for another volley. Ryder's eyes narrow, her lips pressed into a thin line. Forrester, evasive maneuvers. Voss, return fire with our phaser arrays. Let's show these Zyronians what the Endeavor can really do. As the Endeavor darts and weaves through the void, its phaser beams lancing out towards the Zyronian vessel, Ryder can't help but feel a sense of pride and determination. The Zyronians may have underestimated the human ship, but she'll be damned if she's going to let them get away with it. The bridge rocks again as the Zyronian vessel unleashes another barrage, but the Endeavor's shields hold firm, deflecting the energy blasts with ease. Ryder can see the confusion and disbelief etched onto the faces of the Zyronians, their once arrogant posturing giving way to a growing sense of unease. Shields at 65% and holding, Miyamoto reports, his voice tinged with a hint of triumph. Their weapons are powerful, but our shielding is more than a match for them. Ryder nods, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. Now let's give them a taste of our own firepower." As the Endeavor unleashes a withering barrage of phaser fire, the Zyronian vessel begins to list, its sleek design no match for the human ship's superior weaponry. Vylar's face twists in a mask of fury, his arrogance crumbling in the face of the Endeavor's unexpected resilience. Ryder leans back in her chair, her eyes narrowed as she watches the Zyronian vessel struggle to maintain control. "That's right, Captain," she murmurs, her voice barely above a whisper. "We may not be as aesthetically pleasing as your ship, but we're more than capable of holding our own." As the Zyronian vessel lurches and lists under the barrage of phaser fire from the Endeavor, Captain Vylar's face twists into a mask of fury. His once confident demeanor has crumbled in the face of the human ship's unexpected resilience, and he can no longer hide the growing sense of panic in his eyes. "Impossible," he snarls, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair so tightly that his knuckles turn white. "How can this clumsy vessel withstand our advanced weaponry?" Tybran, the Zyronian first officer, is equally perplexed, his brow furrowed in a mixture of confusion and frustration. "I don't understand," he mutters, his gaze flicking frantically between the viewscreen and the readings on his console. Their shielding should have been overwhelmed by now. Commander Ryder watches the Zyronian's distress with a grim sense of satisfaction, her own jaw set in a determined line. "It would seem that you've underestimated the capabilities of the Endeavor and her crew, Captain Vylar," she says, her voice calm and measured. "Perhaps next time you'll think twice before dismissing our clumsy vessel as inferior technology." Vylar's eyes narrow and his lips curl into a snarl. "This is not over, human," he growls, his fingers flying across his console as he attempts to regain control of his ship. "We will not be made fools of by your primitive technology." With a burst of speed, the Zyronian vessel lunges forward, its weapon systems powering up for another volley. But Ryder is ready, her crew responding with precision and efficiency. "Forrester," evasive maneuvers, she barks, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen. "Voss, concentrate all available firepower on their engines and weapon systems. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." The Endeavor dances through the void, its phaser beams lancing out with devastating accuracy. The Zyronian vessel shudders under the onslaught, its sleek exterior scarred by the relentless barrage. "Their engines are offline," Commander Miyamoto reports, his voice tinged with a hint of triumph. "And their weapon systems are powering down. It looks like they're trying to disengage and retreat." Ryder's eyes narrow, and she leans forward in her chair. "Oh, no you don't, Captain Vylar. You're not getting away that easily." She turns to Forrester, her expression grim. "Pursue that vessel, Lieutenant. I want them disabled and tractored into our cargo bay." Forrester nods, his fingers flying across the console as he guides the Endeavor in a relentless chase. The Zyronian ship, its engines crippled, is no match for the human vessel's superior maneuverability, and within minutes it's firmly caught in the Endeavor's tractor beam. "We've got them, Commander," Forrester announces, his voice tinged with a hint of satisfaction. "The Zyronian vessel is in our custody." Ryder nods, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. Now, let's see what our guests have to say for themselves." She turns to Voss, her expression hardening. "Open a channel to the Zyronian vessel. I think it's time we had a little chat with Captain Vylar and his crew." The viewscreen flickers to life, revealing the battered and disheveled forms of the Zyronian officers. Vylar's face is a mask of fury, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and humiliation. "You'll pay for this, human," he snarls, his fingers clenching into fists. "You have no idea what you've just done." Ryder's expression remains calm and impassive, but her voice is laced with a hint of steel. "On the contrary, Captain Vylar, I think I have a pretty good idea. You and your crew made the mistake of underestimating the Endeavor and her crew, and now you're paying the price." She leans forward, her eyes narrowing. "I warned you not to underestimate us, and yet you persisted in your arrogance and condescension. Now, you're going to answer for your actions. Viler's face twists into a snarl, but before he can respond, Ryder raises a hand, silencing him. Save it, Captain. I'm not interested in your excuses or your threats. Right now, you and your crew are our prisoners, and you'll remain that way until we've determined the appropriate course of action. She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the battered Zyronian vessel. And let this be a lesson to you, and to any other alien race who dares to underestimate the human race. We may not be the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but we're not to be trifled with. Underestimate us at your own peril. With that, she nods to Voss, who cuts the transmission, leaving the Zyronians to stew in their humiliation and defeat. As the image of the battered Zyronian vessel fades from the viewscreen, an uneasy silence settles over the bridge of the Endeavor. The crew, their adrenaline still racing from the intense battle, cast sidelong glances at one another, uncertain of what the future holds. Commander Ryder leans back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. The Zyronians' arrogance and condescension had clearly blinded them to the true capabilities of the human vessel, and the ease with which the Endeavor had disabled their ship had left them reeling. But she knows that this victory is bittersweet, for the Zyronians are unlikely to let this humiliation go unchallenged. Lieutenant Forrester, maintain our position, and keep a close eye on the Zyronian vessel, Ryder says, her voice calm and measured. I don't want them to so much as twitch without us knowing about it. Forrester nods, his fingers dancing across the console as he adjusts the Endeavor's course. Aye, Commander. We've got them in our tractor beam, and their engines and weapons systems are offline. They aren't going anywhere. Ryder's gaze shifts to Miyamoto, the young lieutenant at the science station. And what's the status of their systems, Lieutenant? Any signs of further hostility? Miyamoto's brow furrows as he scans the sensor readings. Their power levels are holding steady, Commander, but their communication system appears to be down. It looks like they're unable to transmit any messages or distress calls. Ryder nods, a small satisfied smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Good. The last thing we need is for them to call for reinforcements and turn this into an all-out war. She turns to Voss, the seasoned communications officer. Lieutenant, hail the Zyronian vessel. Let's see if we can't convince Captain Viller to see things our way. Voss nods, his fingers flying across the communications panel. Within moments, the view screen flickers to life, revealing the sullen faces of the Zyronian officers. Captain Villar, Ryder says, her tone cool and measured. I trust you've had time to reconsider your position on the matter of our technological capabilities. Villar's eyes narrow, his expression a mask of barely contained fury. You'll pay for this, human, he snarls, his fingers clenching into fists. You have no idea what you've just done. Ryder raises a hand, silencing him. I think you'll find that we do, Captain. We've disabled your vessel, disabled your weapons, and disabled your communications. You're in no position to make threats. Tybran, the Zyronian first officer, leans forward, his eyes burning with a mixture of anger and desperation. You will release us immediately, or face the consequences. Our people will not stand for this outrage. Ryder's expression remains impassive, but her voice takes on a razor-sharp edge. I think you'll find that your people will have no choice but to accept the consequences of your own actions. First Officer Tybran, you and your captain made the mistake of underestimating us, and now you're paying the price. She leans forward, her gaze boring into the Zyronians. Let this be a lesson to you, and to any other alien race who dares to treat the human race with such contempt. We may not be the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but we are not to be trifled with. Underestimate us at your own peril. Viler's face twists into a mask of fury, but before he can respond, Ryder raises a hand, silencing him. Save it, Captain. I'm not interested in your excuses or your threats. Right now, you and your crew are our prisoners, and you'll remain that way until we've determined the appropriate course of action. She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the battered Zyronian vessel. And let this be a warning to any other alien race who dares to cross our path. We may not be the most powerful or the most advanced, but we are resilient, we are resourceful, and we will not back down in the face of adversity. Vylar opens his mouth to speak, but Ryder cuts him off with a raised hand. Save it, Captain. I'm done listening to your empty threats. Right now, your only concern should be how you're going to convince your superiors that this little incident was nothing more than a misunderstanding. With that, she nods to Voss, who cuts the transmission, leaving the Zironians to stew in their humiliation and defeat. As the bridge falls silent, Ryder leans back in her chair, her mind racing. She knows that this victory is only a temporary reprieve, and that the Zironians are unlikely to let this humiliation go unchallenged. But for now, she's content to savor the satisfaction of having proven her crew's worth and the Endeavor's capabilities. The Zironians sit in stony silence as the view screen blinks out, leaving them to stew in the humiliation of their defeat. Captain Villar's face is a mask of fury, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and disbelief. First Officer Tyberan is equally distraught, his brow furrowed in a futile attempt to make sense of what has just transpired. This cannot be happening, Vylar mutters, his fingers drumming anxiously on the armrest of his chair. How could a mere human vessel have overcome our superior technology? Tyberan shakes his head, his expression a mix of confusion and frustration. I don't understand it, Captain. Their shields should have been overwhelmed by our weapons, and their engines should have been no match for our maneuverability. Yet, they outmaneuvered us and disabled our systems with ease. Vylar's lips curl into a snarl, his knuckles turning white as he grips the armrests of his chair. It's an outrage, Tyberan. These humans have dared to defy us, to make a mockery of our technological prowess. They will pay dearly for this humiliation. Tyberan nods, his own anger bubbling to the surface. Agreed, Captain. We must find a way to escape this predicament and return to our people. They will not stand for such an affront to our honor. The two Zironians lapse into a tense silence, their minds racing as they try to devise a plan to regain their freedom and salvage their damaged pride. But as the minutes tick by, it becomes increasingly clear that their options are limited. Suddenly, the bridge of the Zironian vessel comes alive with activity as a series of alerts sound. Vylar and Tyberan exchange a puzzled glance, their attention diverted from their brooding thoughts. What's happening? Vylar demands, his eyes narrowing as he surveys the flurry of activity on the bridge. I'm not sure, Captain, Tyberan replies, his fingers flying across his console. It appears the human vessel is hailing us again. Vylar's brow furrows, and he nods curtly. Very well, put it through. The view screen flickers to life, revealing the stern visage of Commander Ryder. Her expression is unreadable, but there is a hint of something in her eyes that Vylar can't quite place. Captain Vylar, First Officer Tyberan. Ryder begins, her voice calm and measured. I trust you've had time to reflect on the events of our encounter. Vylar bristles, his jaw tightening. Reflect. The only thing I've been reflecting on is how to make you and your pathetic crew pay for this outrage. Ryder raises a hand, silencing him. I understand your anger, Captain, but I must insist that you listen to what I have to say. Tyberan leans forward, his eyes narrowed. And why should we do that, human? You've made a mockery of us, and you have the audacity to demand that we listen to your words. Ryder's gaze shifts to Tyberan, her expression hardening. Because, First Officer, if you don't, you may find yourselves in a much worse predicament than you already are. Vylar's eyes widen, and he leans forward, his curiosity piqued despite his lingering anger. What are you implying, Commander? Ryder's lips twitch into a humorless smile. Simply this, Captain. You and your crew are our prisoners, and we have the means to ensure that you remain that way for the foreseeable future. Tyberan opens his mouth to protest, but Ryder raises a hand, silencing him. Before you say anything else, I want you to understand something. We have no desire to engage in a prolonged conflict with your people. Our mission is one of exploration and discovery, not conquest or subjugation. She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the two Zironians. However, we will not tolerate any further acts of aggression or attempts to undermine our authority. You and your crew will remain in our custody until we are satisfied that you pose no further threat to our mission or our people. Viler's expression darkens, and he leans forward, his eyes narrowing. And what, pray tell, do you expect us to do, human? Grovel at your feet and beg for your forgiveness. Ryder's expression remains impassive, but there is a hint of steel in her voice. Not at all, Captain. I expect you to learn from this experience, to understand that the human race is not to be trifled with, and to convey that message to your superiors. She leans back in her chair, her gaze never wavering from Viler's. I want you to go back to your people, humbled by your defeat, and tell them that the next time they underestimate us, the consequences will be far more severe. Tiberan opens his mouth to speak, but Vilar raises a hand, silencing him. The Zironian captain's expression is unreadable, but there is a glimmer of something in his eyes that Ryder can't quite place. Very well, Commander. Vilar says slowly, we will do as you ask. But know this, the Zironian people do not forget, and they do not forgive. The next time we meet, it will not end so favorably for you. Ryder nods, her own expression solemn. I understand, Captain. But I hope that next time we can find a way to work together rather than against each other. With that, she nods to Voss, who cuts the transmission, leaving the Zironians to ponder the gravity of their defeat and the weight of Ryder's parting words. As the view screen blinks out, leaving the Zironians to stew in their defeat, Commander Ryder lets out a long, slow breath. The tension on the bridge is palpable, the crew casting wary glances at one another as they process the gravity of what has just transpired. Ryder turns to Lieutenant Forrester, her expression grim. Status report, Lieutenant. Forrester's fingers dance across his console, his brow furrowed in concentration. The Zironian vessel is secure in our cargo bay, Commander. Their engines and weapons systems are still offline, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Ryder nods, her gaze shifting to Miyamoto. And their crew? Any signs of further hostility? Miyamoto shakes his head, his eyes scanning the sensor readings. Negative, Commander. The Zironians appear to be resigned to their situation. They're not making any attempts to regain control of their ship or to contact their homeworld. Ryder's lips tighten into a thin line, and she turns to Voss. Lieutenant, keep a constant watch on the Zironian vessel. I want to know the moment they so much as twitch. Voss nods, his expression grim. Aye, Commander. I'll keep a close eye on them, and I'll have security teams standing by just in case. Ryder settles back into her chair, her fingers drumming thoughtfully on the armrest. The Zironians' defeat had been a decisive victory for the Endeavor and her crew, but she knows that it is only a temporary reprieve. The Zironian people are not the kind to forget or forgive easily, and she can't help but wonder what the future may hold. Commander, are you sure it was wise to let them go? Lieutenant Forrester asks, his voice laced with concern. They're bound to come back, and next time they may not be so accommodating. Ryder's gaze shifts to Forrester, her expression thoughtful. I understand your concern, Lieutenant, but I believe it was the right thing to do. We're not conquerors, and we have no desire to hold the Zironians captive indefinitely. She pauses, her eyes narrowing slightly. Besides, I think it's important that they return to their people with a new understanding of the human race. We may not be the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy, but we're not to be underestimated. Forrester nods, his brow furrowing in concentration. I see your point, Commander. But what if they decide to seek retribution? Surely they won't just accept this defeat and move on. Ryder's lips curl into a small, wry smile. Oh, I have no doubt that the Zironians will seek to avenge their wounded pride. But I also believe that they've learned a valuable lesson today, that the human race is not to be trifled with. She leans forward, her gaze sweeping across the bridge. We may have won this particular battle, but I have a feeling that our encounter with the Zironians is just the beginning of a much larger conflict. And when that time comes, I want us to be ready. The crew exchanges glances, their expressions a mix of determination and apprehension. They know that the Zironians will not simply let this humiliation go unchallenged, and that the next confrontation could be even more intense and dangerous. But as Ryder surveys her crew, she sees the same unwavering resolve that has carried them through countless challenges before. These are not just her officers and crew. They are her family, her comrades in arms, and she knows that they will stand beside her, no matter what the future may hold. "All right, people, listen up," Ryder says, her voice ringing with a newfound sense of purpose. "I know that what we've just been through has shaken us all, but we can't let that distract us from our mission." She pauses, her gaze sweeping across the bridge. "The Zironians may have underestimated us this time, but they won't make that mistake again. They're going to come back, and when they do, we need to be ready." The crew nods, their expressions hardening with determination. Ryder can see the fire in their eyes, the same fire that has driven them to overcome every obstacle in their path. "From this moment on, we redouble our efforts," Ryder continues, her voice clear and unwavering. "We train harder, we study our enemy's tactics, and we prepare for the inevitable confrontation, because when the Zironians return, we'll be waiting for them. And we won't be the ones who are caught off guard." The bridge erupts into a chorus of affirmations, the crew's voices mingling with the hum of the Endeavor systems. Ryder leans back in her chair, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "That's what I like to hear," she murmurs, her gaze fixed on the view screen and the vast expanse of space beyond. "Let's show these Zironians what the human race is truly made of."